At some point, without really noticing, most people stop becoming someone new and start just being who they already are. The job becomes routine. The skills calcify, the identity hardens, and one day you look up and realize the version of yourself you've already been showing the world is a few years out of date. Like a phone that stopped updating its software, while everything around it kept moving. Now, that's not a failure, that's just what happens when you let life run on autopilot. And the book I want to talk to you about today is specifically about how to get off autopilot. Not by overhauling your entire life overnight, but by learning a particular way of seeing yourself in your situation that makes reinvention feel possible and practical, rather than terrifying and vague. The book is Disrupt Yourself by Jay Samit. Now on the surface, it's a business book. Samit spent 30 years inside the technology and media industries, and a lot of his examples come from that world. But underneath the business language is a set of ideas about personal transformation that can apply to anyone. Anyone who feels stuck, anyone who suspects there's a better version of their life available to them, but can't quite see the path to it. Anyone who's been saying, "I should really change something," for longer than they'd like to admit. I want to translate those ideas into plain language today. No startup jargon or Silicon Valley mythology. Just the actual mental moves that changed how you see yourself and what to do next. The most important line in the entire book isn't about business at all. Samit writes, "All disruption starts with introspection." And he means it literally. Before you can change anything in your external life, your job, your relationships, your daily patterns, you have to get honest about your internal life. How you actually see yourself, and whether that picture is accurate or just comfortable. Here's what Samit means by this. Most of us carry a self-image that was formed a long time ago. You decided you weren't a creative person at some point, or that you weren't technically minded, or that you weren't the kind of person who takes risks, or speaks up, or starts things. And then you spent years collecting evidence to confirm that story, and filtering out anything that contradicted it. Samit calls this your internal values chain. The beliefs about your own strengths, weaknesses, and potential that shape every decision you make. And just like anything else that doesn't get examined, parts of it become outdated. The person you decided they weren't good at public speaking at 17 might be completely different at 35. The person you wrote off as passion, as impractical, might now be in a position where that passion is exactly what the world around them needs. The first practical exercise from this book is simple but uncomfortable. Write down the beliefs you hold about yourself that are actually limiting your progress. Not weaknesses, beliefs. I'm not the kind of person who sentences. Then ask for each one, is this actually true right now? Or is it just a story I've been carrying long enough that I stopped questioning it? Because you cannot disrupt your life from the outside if the inside is still running on old programming. Here's one of the ideas in the book that I think gets missed the most, and it's one I find most genuinely useful. Samit makes the argument that your unique combination of experiences, skills, and knowledge is not just an interesting background, Nellies. It's actually your most valuable asset. He puts it this way: be the best at what you do, or be the only one doing it. And for most regular people, the path to only is more achievable than the path to best. Now think about your own life, the things you've done, the places you've worked, the interests that you've accumulated, the skills you picked up in different contexts. Most people see that as scattered, unfocused mess, evidence that they haven't committed hard enough to one thing. Samit sees it completely differently. He sees each of those things as a link in a chain that, combined in the right way, creates a unique profile that nobody else can replicate. A nurse, who is also a passionate photographer, brings something to medical imaging conversions that no photographer or no nurse alone could bring. A teacher who spent years in retail management understands how to run a classroom like a business in a way most educators don't. A tradesperson who is deeply interested in sustainability has a perspective that academics and policymakers genuinely need but rarely have access to. Your weird mix isn't a liability, it's a moat. The practical move here is to stop apologizing for the breadth of your experience and start asking, where does this specific combination create value that a more narrowly defined person can't? Where does my odd overlap become the exact thing someone needs? One of the core ideas Samit comes back to repeatedly is this. Every person who has ever transformed their life started with a personal problem and then realized how many other people shared that same problem. Richard Branson started Virgin Airlines because he was stranded at an airport and felt the existing options were terrible. He didn't think, I want to start an airline. He thought, this is broken and I'm frustrated and there has to be a better way. That frustration became the seed of a billion-dollar business. But more relevantly for us, it's also the seed of a better, more engaged life. Sam's invitation here is to start paying attention to your own frustrations differently. Not as annoyances to be tolerated, but as signals worth investigating. What keeps going wrong in your daily life? What do you complain about regularly that nobody seems to be fixing? What do you wish existed? A service, a community, a resource that you've never been able to find. You don't have to turn your answer into a startup, but you might find that the problem you've been living with is pointing you towards something. A skill to develop, a community to build, a direction to move in. That gives your life more energy and meaning than the path you're currently on. The daily practice Samit recommends here is literally just keeping a list. Write down every friction point, every why doesn't something just moment. Every time you catch yourself thinking, there has to be a better way. Do for 2 weeks. Then, read the list back. Patterns will emerge that point you towards where your energy actually wants to go. There's a chapter in this book that genuinely is difficult to sit with. Samit calls it In Search of the Zombie Idea. And while he frames it in business terms, the personal version of it is even more confronting. A zombie idea is something you keep investing in time, energy, and identity, long past the point where it's actually serving you. It's the version of yourself that you've been trying to become for years that maybe isn't actually what you want to do anymore. It's the goal you set a long time ago that still sits on the list, even though the person who set it barely resembles who you are today. It's the story you tell about why your life looks the way it does that's become more comfortable than honest. Samit's point is blunt. Emotional attachment is who you used to be, or who you decided you were going to be. It's one of the biggest obstacles to becoming who you could actually be right now. And the willingness to let an old version of yourself go, to say, that chapter is done, what is next, is not giving up, it's intelligence. This is harder than it sounds because identity is sticky. We've often told people who we are, and changing feels like admitting something. But Samit reframes this completely. Pivoting isn't failure. Staying locked into something that isn't working just because changing feels like an admission. That is the real cost. Every month you spend defending and versioning yourself that no longer fits is a month you're not building the one that does. The exercise here is identifying one thing that you're still carrying, a goal, an identity, a self-description that you would honestly release if you gave yourself permission. What would you do differently the day you let that go? One of the things I appreciate about Samit's approach is that he never pretends reinvention is a single dramatic moment. He calls the alternative approach incremental disruption, the idea that transformation almost always happens through small, deliberate moves that accumulate into something unrecognizable over time. Most of us are waiting for a lightning bolt, a moment of clarity that makes everything obvious, a crisis that forces the change we've been avoiding. But Samit's observation across hundreds of careers and transformations is that the people who change most successfully don't wait for the lightning bolt. They make a small move, then another, and then another. They say yes to one thing they would normally avoid. They develop a skill at the edge of their comfort zone. They have one conversation they've been putting off. This compound effect of small moves is enormous. 6 months of one small deliberate shift per week adds up to 26 new moves. Most people can't even remember what that life looked like a year ago, which means they're consistently underestimating how much they can actually change in 12 months if they're intentional about it. So the practical question from that chapter isn't how do I transform my life? That question is too big and leads to paralysis. The question is, what is one thing I could do this week that represents a small move towards the person I actually want to be? One skill to start learning, one conversation to have, one habit to introduce or drop, one thing to say yes to that I would normally decline. That's it. Just one, and then again the next week. The line that Samit comes back to at the end of the book is the one I keep thinking about. He says, the most rewarding project you'll ever work on is you. Not your career, not your side hustle, not your 5-year plan, just you. The actual living, changing, growing human being underneath all of those external goals. Most of us treat ourselves as fixed. We think who we are is already decided, that the job of life is to find the lane that fits the person we already are and stay in it. Samit's entire book is an argument against that. People reinvent themselves constantly. Careers change radically. Skills that didn't exist 10 years ago are now the most sought after in the world. The idea that you are done becoming who you are at any age, in any circumstance, is not supported by any evidence. The version of you that is slightly braver, slightly more honest about what you actually want, slightly more willing to let go of the old story and try something new, that person is not far away. They don't require a complete life overhaul. They require a series of small, deliberate decisions to start seeing yourself the way a disruptor sees an industry full of potential that hasn't been unlocked yet, running on assumptions that haven't been questioned years, with more room to move than you've been allowing yourself to believe. You are not your job title. You are not your past decisions. You are not the summary of yourself that you've been repeating to people at parties for the last 5 years. You are a work in progress. Act like it, and start today.